Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at 9 scary kids who remember their past lives. Do you guys believe in a thing called reincarnation? That means you never actually stop being alive and you just get new lives every single time. Well, today a few people even in the science field are actually starting to believe this. But did you know that 100% of people who claim to be reincarnated actually are children? Well, here are some very scary kids who could have actually been reincarnated. But before we get into it, why not subscribe and press the notification bell too. First off, we have James LEININGER. If your kid kept waking up in the middle of the night shouting "airplane crash," would you be scared? Well, James's parents weren't either. They simply thought it was their 4-year-old boy having nightmares. They thought James was simply a 4-year-old boy from Louisiana. But when they began asking James about his bad dreams, they found out he may actually not be the person they thought he was. James remarkably told his parents he was a US pilot during World War II. He said his plane had gone down over Iwo Jima, which was an island the USA captured in 1945. So he was having these nightmares and claimed he was a pirate. But wait, there's more that's really convincing. At the age of 4, James somehow knew every detail about the planes the US Air Force used in World War II. One day, James and his mum was at a museum when they saw a US fighter pilot used in World War II. His mum said, "Wow, look at the bomb on the bottom of that plane." But James quickly corrected his mom, saying that's not a bomb, it's called a drop tank. James was 100% right, but there's no way he could have known this. Another time, he was watching a World War II documentary when the narrator called a Japanese jet a Zero. James said the narrator was wrong and they're actually called Tonys, and he turned out to be 100% right. That's right, this 4-year-old somehow knows more about World War II than a World War II narrator. James could go into crazy detail about his past life, saying he flew off a ship named the Natoma. It turned out the Natoma was actually a World War II aircraft carrier. Not only that, James said his previous name was James Huston. And when his parents looked it up, a man by the name of James Huston did actually fly off the Natoma World War II aircraft carrier. Next up is Ryan Hammonds. At the age of just 5, Ryan Hammonds stunned his parents, telling them he wanted to go home. When they asked him what he meant, he said he wanted to go back to his home in Hollywood. This made no sense to Ryan's parents, seeing as he was born and has never left Oklahoma. He said in his past life he was in showbiz and was a famous performer. He said he vividly remembered dancing on Broadway and living in Hollywood. He even mentioned working with actress Rita Hayworth. His parents were not believing him until Ryan told them to rent a movie from the 1930s called Night After Night. Ryan pointed to one of the extras in the movie and said, "That's me." Researchers looked into this extra and it turned out he was named Martin. Amazingly, just like Ryan said, he did live in Hollywood, he did dance on Broadway, and he did work with Rita Hayworth. Ryan also said in his past life he was married in Paris and had 2 sisters. And when they looked into it, the extra, Martin, also had 2 sisters and was married in Paris. Coming up next is BORISKA. Do you believe the 2 cases of reincarnation we've just covered? Well, if you didn't, then you probably won't believe this one, as this is very far-fetched. However, this is said to be one of the most amazing reincarnation stories and is very convincing too. This boy became famous after a documentary called BORISKA, the Boy from Mars. This kid has a genius IQ, but that's not all. He apparently remembers his past life. He said that he's actually from the planet Mars and used to be 7 feet tall. He claimed he used to be part of a thriving civilization which was destroyed due to conflict. He claimed he travelled many light years from Mars to Earth and was reborn as a baby human. NASA claimed that Mars could have once hosted life millions of years ago. So maybe BORISKA's story isn't that far-fetched and he really is an alien that's come down to Earth. How else do you explain that before he was 1 year old he could already write and speak? And by the age of 6 he already had a genius IQ, so clearly he's not a regular human being. Next up we have CHOOMALAIWONG. When this boy from Thailand was just 3 years old, he began saying he was a reincarnation of a teacher. He said that in his past life he was a teacher named Boy Cup. This teacher had passed away after an incident on his bike. He claimed he knew where Boy Kai's parents lived and wanted to meet them. But no matter how much he begged his parents, they wouldn't take him as they thought he was lying or crazy. But one day he was able to convince his grandma to take him to that house. Him and his grandma got off a bus in an area CHANAI had never been to. CHANAI then led her to a house where an old man and woman lived. CHANAI recognized the parents, but they didn't recognize him. But when the grandma asked who they were, they said they were the parents of a man named Boy Kai. They said Boy Kai had passed away in a motorbike accident 5 years before CHANAI was born. From that day on, Boy Kai's parents and CHANAI's grandmother believed him. His parents still do not believe him today and believe he may be crazy or psychic. But how else can you explain him knowing where Boy Kai's parents lived and exactly what happened to their son? Next up is Joey VERWEY. So we've seen people who claim to have lived past lives. But this girl actually claims to have lived over 10 past lives. When she was just 4 years old, she began saying she had past lives. At first, her parents simply thought she was having childhood dreams and fantasies. But it turned out her stories were so factual and detailed they couldn't be made up. Somehow she had deep historical knowledge and she even passed lie detector tests. That's when her parents took her to a psychologist to get her evaluated. She claimed her first past life was 200 million years ago when the world first began. She also remembers the ancient Egyptian times too. And she also remembers Emperor Nero and claims to have lived in ancient Rome. Next up is Sam Taylor. So this story is very weird and may make you believe in reincarnation if you don't already. Sam Taylor was born only 18 months after his grandfather passed away. But when he was only 3 years old, he already began saying many things about his past life as his own grandfather. For example, when his father was making him breakfast, he said, "When I was your age, I used to make you breakfast." Just imagine what a mind warp that was for Sam's father. At the age of 4, he recounted many facts about his grandfather that his parents never told him. For example, he knew his grandfather's sister's name, who he'd never met. He also knew things like his grandfather's favorite food and music. Imagine how weird it is for Sam Taylor's father raising his own father. Next up is Andrew Lucas. One day, this 4-year-old boy from Virginia claimed to have had a past life as a US Marine. He said he passed away in action in 1983. At first, his parents thought it was nonsense, but psychologists say he's not lying. He was subject to the documentary Ghost Inside My Child. Andrew claimed he used to be called Val Lewis. And after his parents looked into it, amazingly, they found a US Marine sergeant named Val Lewis who passed away in 1983. Andrew first had nightmares about the battlefield when he was very young. His parents simply thought he saw a documentary and that's why he had these nightmares. But after he could describe his army friends with incredible detail, they began to believe him. And now in Virginia, Andrew is known as a reincarnated veteran. Next up is Shanti Devi. In 1926, this woman was born in Delhi, India. But by the 1930s, Shanti had already convinced her parents she'd been reincarnated. She claimed to be from a different village named Mathura. She had never been there or seen it on a map, but it does exist. She described her old house and dresses in great detail and even tracked the house down when they went to the village. Reincarnation is a big thing in India and very famous people like the Dalai Lama believe in it. So, do you think Shanti really did have more than one life? Finally on the list we have Luke RUEHLMAN. When Luke was only 4 years old, he began talking about a woman named Pam to his mom. He would talk about Pam in great detail and that concerned his mom a lot. But when his mom said, "Who is Pam?" he said, "I was." He claimed he used to be Pam, but Pam passed away and he's now a young boy named Luke. To this day, Luke claims he's a woman named Pam Robinson. In the 1980s, there was a fire at the Paxton Hotel in Chicago which took her life. Luke was able to recount this in great detail without knowing anything about the situation. So who knows, maybe Luke really is Pam. Be sure to check out the poll in the top right corner to vote for the most amazing case of a child who remembers their past life. I think it's gotta be James, who remembered being a fighter pilot. If you guys want more amazing videos, check out my second channel. There'll be a link to that coming up on screen in a moment. But as always, thanks for watching. Check out some more videos on screen right now, leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.